Hello and welcome to the next session of the Canadian Parliament. This is the follow-up session after Canada has left the AOR, and together with me I have plenty of foreign people who came over, and they were quite interesting actually to hear the next session. Alongside we have also the we have the government as always, the several honourable MPs and citizens and residents of Ineria that they're interested to hear the session. Now, it has come to my attention that we have a new member of the House, and I would like a huge round of applause for our newest member who's about to take his oath, Mr. Helvetorius. Now, before we proceed any further, are you able to communicate in the Parliament channel? Thank you. With that being said, honourable members of the Parliament, I would like a motion or a point of order in this case here to proceed with your permission to basically to allow our honourable member to take their oath of office.
I beg to move.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, Mr. Helvetorius, welcome to the Parliament, and this is the first session that you're going to be taking, but before we proceed, you'll have to take the following oath of office, which in that occasion there you will imply that you, inserting your name followed by your name, swear that you will bear true allegiance to the Canadian Union, that you will respect and follow the Constitution and laws that the people of Canada have established, and that you will fulfill your duties as an elected member of the Parliament. Finally, as always, you will demonstrate an utmost respect and professionalism to all Canadian citizens. Thank you. Alrighty, with that being said, Helvetorius is actually given his oath of office in this case here. A huge round of applause, of course.
Yeah.
We're still working on that, so we're gonna have to find a way, either with clapping or either with emojis. We're still trying to find a way about that. Thank you. All right. With that being said, the floor will be open for the government and the Prime Minister to receive your questions and proceed. And with that being said, we have already the first question coming from the honourable member of the Parliament, Cheshire. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to first welcome my honourable friend Helvetorius to the Parliament. I'm sure that he will do a great job representing all Canadians. I would like to ask the Prime Minister, following our successful departure from the Assembly of Regions, given that the Minister of Foreign Affairs is not currently here, I would like to ask the Prime Minister if he would detail to the Parliament what the extent of our future relations with the Assembly shall be.
Thank you. The floor will be moving to the Prime Minister. Sir, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank my right honourable friend, should I say, for his question. As always, his enthusiasm and diligence to the topic of AOR membership and now our departure is one that I'm sure most members of the House and the citizenry appreciate. I would like to echo my honourable friend's comments and welcoming Helvetorius, the honourable member, to the House. It's nice to have you with us, and I absolutely second the comments of my honourable friend, North East Cheshire. What I will note is moving forward from our relationship with the AOR, following the successful democratic exercise carried out in Canada in favour of leave at a 79% margin, one that we are incredibly proud of in the government, as the democratic turnout was vast and far outstripped the turnout in the AOR elections themselves and the House of Commons by-election. So we're very proud that citizens made their voice known. As it comes to future scope of relations with the AOR itself, the government currently has no intention of maintaining a direct embassy with the Assembly of Regions. However, the government will continue our embassies with AOR member states. The AOR themselves signaled that they did not want to maintain a formal embassy with us and prevented notification of withdrawal when the government filed the withdrawal notification with the AOR last week. What I will say, though, is I am pleased to see many AOR member states representatives here this evening. It's always a privilege and a pleasure to have you attend our House. And that being said, the government will continue our new Open Canada policy, which will engage in open, fair, and transparent foreign affairs in the Canadian interest moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister. The floor is again open for further questions. And Cato, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm sure that all Canadians have noticed our recent mass increase in citizenship, which has brought the region to, I do believe, around 400 members. I would like to ask if my right honourable friend, the Home Secretary, would agree with me that the citizen uptick is indeed a good thing for the region, and that his department is working diligently to make sure that citizenship applications are processed in the quickest and most efficient manner to ensure that the region can continue growing and have a bright and prosperous future outside of the Assembly of Regions.
Prime Minister.
It was to the Secretary of State for the Home Department, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, thank you. Secretary of State, Lincoln, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What I would say to the honourable member is I'm about to cover all those issues in my upcoming statement, so stay tuned for that one. And I yield the floor back.
Okay, that was the shortest response ever received by a Secretary of State, but moving forward, the floor is again open for further questions to the government. We have Helvetorius who's actually typing. Okay, in the meantime, would like anyone else to take the floor for questioning?
Of course, government MP ministers are free to ask questions irrelevant, external to their own department.
Absolutely. Okay, we have two members of the parliament who are actually typing right now. Okay, Mr. Cato, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would just like to ask a question to my right honourable friend, the newly appointed Minister of Justice, Mr. Bredonia, and I would like to welcome him to the post, and I very much look forward to working with him in the Ministry of Justice. I would just like to ask him if he will continue the great work of his predecessor, Austria, in ensuring that justice is dealt quickly, efficiently, and above all, without bias.
All right, Mr. Braden.
Thank you.
Yeah, the floor is yours. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I have no intention of changing anything, I would suppose. I've been on leave recently because I've been personally really busy, but I've just become very free. So I have every intention of re-involving myself more personally in the region and within the ministry in particular. So I have no intention of changing anything unless it needs to be changed. So that would be my answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Alrighty, Mr. Helvetor is still typing his response. At the same time, does the government wish to make any further statements in regards to any current developments in the United Union?
There is a statement from the Secretary of State for the Home Department.
Please, Mr. Lincoln.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I would just like to start by welcoming our new member, of course, Helvetorius. And I'm just making a quick statement on a few things in order to keep people up to date with what's going on. So, first thing is the citizenship is continuing to skyrocket. And I want to thank the technical team and my own department for working on that. I would also like to thank Australian States because he's developed a very useful tool to streamline the process so we can input the new citizens that are joining the region. Second to that, I'll also be updating the registry with all the new citizens which have flooded in. And I'll be looking to produce the next issue of the newsletter, and that will include things like talking about the new role play that's going on, updating people on regional happenings. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, why are we doing so brilliantly? Maybe it's because the government is delivering, and that may be correct, but I also put it down to Anadia breaking free of the AOR, and I'm sure everyone is looking forward to the bright future that is ahead of us, Mr. Speaker, and I commend the statement to the House.
Yeah.
Thank you, Secretary of State Lincoln. Alrighty. Without being said, I'm still waiting for Helvetorius to complete his personal statement there. And Cato, yep, Mr. Cato, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to thank my right honourable friend for his statement. I would just like to ask him if given the dramatic uptick for how long his department expects the growth in citizenship to continue before it plateaus. That is, of course, if they believe it will plateau or they believe it will continue to rise beyond 500 nations.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mr. Secretary of State Lincoln, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I see no slowing in the process. It seems to be that the numbers are still ticking over. In fact, I don't know if I could put a specific number on it, but I think we'll be continuing into a number of weeks as we continue the drive to get new citizens into the region, if that answers the question.
Okay, if the honorable members, just to assist a little bit with the statistics that we've conducted lately, if the honorable members would allow me to speak not as the Speaker of the House, but actually as one of the members of the Technical Department. According to the statistics that we are having, about 84,000 telegrams have been delivered successfully to the feeder regions, including all the Pacifics in this case here, and about 25,000 have been delivered to the feeder regions. Now, in this situation here, the Sinki regions. So in this situation here, what we've been observing so far is that from these 84,000 delivered telegrams, about 5,000 have been read, just in the Pacifics. So I would assume that we would still have an increase of citizens because a lot of telegrams have not been read yet.
Yeah, fantastic, Mr. Speaker. Brilliant.
All right, I'm still waiting for Helvetori's response, but we're going to be moving to Cheshire, Mr. Cheshire, because he wanted to take the floor. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would just like to quickly ask if my right honourable friend, the Minister for Roleplay, would care to give the House an update as to the progress of the new Canadian roleplay.
Yes, Mr. Honourable Member, Austrian Secretary of Roleplay, go ahead.
We have, the role play is going well. We have experienced a bit of a growth in role players, people joining, but the problem is quite a lot of them are sadly inactive. So probably to draw, and those like the new ones that are active are not as experienced as the others. So if anybody knows any more experienced role players in the region, it would be nice to get them to join and participate in the role play so the newer players can learn. We have been also collaborating with the cartography department to get the map out with its different modes, but currently they're being a little bit slow. That's all. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, can I just add to the Minister's statement?
Yeah, all right. So, yeah, please go ahead. Kate?
It should be noted.
Yeah, sorry.
It should be noted that the department has worked very diligently on this. And when the Minister says less experienced players, what he means is players that require a degree of roleplay training that will be progressing throughout time. However, what we need in surplus to that is experienced players to demonstrate what we're looking for overall to raise the general activity and standards so the new players can pick it up more quickly. Of course, we welcome all new players to the roleplay and we encourage them to get involved and learn something new. So I just thought I'd add that for clarity to the Minister's statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. I'll be moving the floor to, before I read the statement provided by the Honourable Member Helvetorius, I'll be moving the floor to the Right Honourable Member of Cheshire because they requested to have the floor. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would just like to quickly ask my right honourable friend, the Secretary of Roleplay, given the vast speed at which the roleplay map has filled, and the fact that there are more role players currently waiting to be mapped, what plans the ministry has in place for the scenario that the map is filled within a short space of time?
The ministry has already a plan to introduce a new continent onto the map, but currently that is progressing at a slow rate because of the inefficiency of the cartography department. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Honourable Member Austria. I'll be moving and I'll be reading the post provided by the Honourable Member Helvetorius in behalf of the Secretary of Foreign Affairs, Exodius. They're basically stating the following thing. With our recent departure from the Assembly of Regions, Ineria is entering a new and somewhat uncertain area in its history, and nowhere is this more true than in the Foreign Affairs Ministry, with some of our closest interregional partners now outside of the Assembly of Regions. While we would like to say that the things will go absolutely smoothly, this would be something of a misstatement, as the reality is that the situation presents itself in such a manner that we cannot predict the future. However, what I can say is this: the Foreign Affairs Ministry will remain committed to furthering the Inerian promise to interregional relations, cooperation, and so on. We are already pursuing a number of particular things with other regions, which will be revealed at the appropriate time. I would also like to take this moment to ensure every member of the government, citizen of Ineria, and foreign guest we have here that we will continue to work closely with the individual regions in the Assembly of Regions, as while we have issues with the AOR itself, those grievances do not at all extend to the individual regions within the AOR, who remain some of the EU's closest allies. And I'm proud to say, as a Foreign Affairs Minister, that we will be continuing our close interregional cooperation with many regions within the body, and that the citizens will always be welcomed as our honored guests within Ineria. That is the statement provided by the Foreign Affairs Minister, the Right Honourable Member Exodius, and it has been provided as a written speech by the Honourable Member Helvetorius. And yes, I see that you have already a question. Please, Honourable Member Cesare, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will, in the absence of the Secretary of State, I will direct my question to the Prime Minister, and I would just like to simply ask if, now that our withdrawal from the Assembly Regions has indeed now been completed, and following on from the Foreign Secretary's statement, I would just like to ask if there is I don't know if this is correct to put this, but a almost priority list of regions of which the government is seeking to either engage new relations or strengthen existing relations with, and if there is such a list, I would like to ask if the government would care to share that with the House.
The floor will be moving to the Prime Minister, and of course, if they would like to take over the question, they can actually make it known now.
I will take the question.
Thank you. Mr. Prime Minister, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm not too sure what the Honourable Member means by a priority list. Ineria treats all foreign affairs with all regions of equal importance and equal due diligence. We do not have a ranking of our allies and partners. I think that would be rather discriminatory and derogatory. No, the government is pursuing a number of foreign affairs portfolio projects, and we treat all of our partners with equality, and I think that's appropriate. What I would say to the Honourable Member is no such list exists of a ranking of our foreign affairs relations, as the department and the government as a whole views the foreign affairs issue as as part of the open Ineria policy, and moving forward is to have positive, open and transparent relations with our allies and partners moving forward. Thank you.
Yes, it appears like the Honourable Member Cesare has a counter question, in this case, or an additional question. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would just like to ask a question on a slightly different topic. Following conversations that I saw take place in the Assembly of Regions Discord during Inedia's membership, including opinions that were made known by many Inedians, and the Prime Minister has made a point towards this in a previous statement, so I would just like to extend the question a bit further to the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister noted that the vote share in the Assembly of Regions referendum was a significant amount larger than the reported vote share by the Assembly of Regions during their House of Delegates elections, and many people, including Canadian citizens, who I shall not name because...
Point of order.
Please go ahead.
The honourable member is venturing into the realms of speculation, and I would encourage him not to do so.
Point of order received in this case here. Please, Mr. Cesar, maybe you could actually reform your question or let's say your text into an actual question in this case.
I am indeed heading to answer the question. Mrs. Gahmer simply wanted to ask the Prime Minister if he believes that the reason in part for a much larger vote turnout in the Assembly of Regions referendum, as opposed to the reported turnout in the AOR House of Delegates elections, was due to dissatisfaction amongst a large percentage of the Canadian populace with the Assembly of Regions, or it was simply due to a larger number of nations being made properly aware that an election was underway.
I thank the honourable member for his question.
Okay, Mr. Prime Minister, all right, would you be answering the question?
I will answer the question to ensure that the position is clear.
Please go ahead.
Well, the honourable member ventures slightly into a speculative nature there. What I will say is turnout in the AOR referendum exceeded the last 3 elections within Inadia, so it should not be a shock to citizens that the turnout was particularly higher than the Assembly of Regions House of Delegates election. What I will say, though, is the way in which the House of Delegates election for the Assembly of Regions was carried out was unsatisfactory in the view of many regions, and Inadia did file in the Assembly of Regions Court in support of the United Democrats to extend the election polling for 12 hours, following the notification that several AOR regions had not been made aware that the election polling had actually commenced and had failed to notify their regions, therefore resulting in what could be argued as skewed results. Inadia was not one of those regions. The Canadian poll notification process for all Canadian elections is uniform and standard. The standard procedure was followed, with notification on the RMB, notification via Telegram, and of course notification via the Electoral Commission channel in the Canadian Discord. No Canadian citizens were disadvantaged in their voting by any policy within Inadia. However, I cannot speak for vote verification within the AOR, as that is a separate issue. And a question that should be directed towards the Regional Electoral Commissioner in a written request. I can direct the member towards the Electoral Commissioner, Mr. Liz Bain, should he want to seek clarification on election turnouts. It's not a government area. But I will commend Canadians for their diligence and turnout. A very proud democratic exercise that restored our region's independence and moving forward. And I do understand that there is a petition being started by some members of this House and of the citizenry to declare the said date of the referendum as Independence Day. And I will look forward to receiving said petition under the grounds of the National Holidays Act. Thank you.
Mr. Cheshire, then the honourable member has another question. Please go ahead.
I do indeed, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. I would like to ask the Prime Minister if he agrees with me in having concern at comments being made by the Attorney General in the public record expressing an intent to attempt to silence the rights of a democratically elected member of this House to speak by introducing a petition to limit a member's ability to speak during a session to once only. Does the Prime Minister agree with me that such a petition is of grave concern in its own right as an affront towards democracy, but even more so coming from the Attorney General?
I will respond, Mr. Speaker.
Can I
No, I'll respond.
Order. Prime Minister, go ahead.
What I will say to the honourable member is, I think singling out the Attorney General for what is clearly is a comment meant in great humour is one that I will not be drawn on. The government's policy is very clear. The only way the member could be deprived of his speaking rights in this House is by a motion of this House of censure. And as you know, that there is no such motion of censure on the table. And of course, it is inappropriate to remove MPs or any citizen who is not in violation or under criminal investigation of any right whatsoever unless mandated by the law. So, I mean, the Attorney General is within his rights, I will point out, to submit said petition to Parliament, but the consideration of that petition is one for Parliament, and I take it as the member, as the Attorney General being humorous rather than derogatory. So no, I do not think that this needs a condemnation from the Prime Minister, if you will. I think the member should maybe take it in good humour.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. In terms to your question, Honourable Member Cheshire, under my speakership at least, I believe that every Honourable Member's word and opinion as well as questions have always been made clear, and I would like to reiterate that it will continue being that way, despite the humorous or childish behavior that some members are displaying in this case here. At the same time, taking that into consideration, Mr. Cheshire, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just following on from what you have said, I would like to, on behalf of the entire House, thank you for your dedication to the job as Speaker that you have shown in your term so far, and the excellent job that you have done in such a job in ensuring all members have had the right to speak, be heard, introduce legislation, and vote on said legislation without prejudice being shown for or against any member by the chair. And I'm sure that the entire House will join me in thanking you for the excellent job that you have done so far as its Speaker.
Appreciate it. With that being said, any other questions or statements that the government would like to deliver to the House of Delegates, or any other questions that the honourable members would like to raise to the government?
The House of Delegates, Mr. Speaker.
I'm sorry. Yeah, apologies.
I believe the Speaker may be a bit too fond of the AOR still.
It's not quite that. To my best of ability right now, I'm trying to supervise both the Parliament and the Voice channel at the same time, so I'm getting quite, well, let's say, pulled away by all the comments. I'm trying to find the best way, so if citizens of the of our union have questions towards the government or the Parliament, they can actually make them known. But in this case here, to the worst of my experience, I've seen that the Voice channel, instead of actually being used for questions, it's been used for memeing, which actually in that case there can be moved to creative media. Regardless of that, the Prime Minister, yes, please.
There's a point of order from Mr. Havlatorius.
Where is that posted? Because I do not see it anywhere.
Parliament.
Parliament channel, Mr. Speaker.
I'm sorry. Yeah, Honourable Member Havlatorius, go ahead. And you're going to be writing your point of order. Okay, understood.
In the meantime, I have a Prime Ministerial statement.
Please, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I once again note the achievement of Inadia in achieving independence from the Assembly of Regions and taking back control of our laws and democratic processes, and ensuring that Canadian justice cannot be subverted by the narrow-mindedness of a biased court, as this House recognized last week. I would also like to praise all Canadian citizens for their participation in the democratic processes so far, and I am delighted that more and more Canadians are getting involved in regional politics, as the attendance to see this House has increased week by week, and I think that is something that deserves to be commended. However, I will not dwell on the AOR referendum for long. It is the intention of the government moving forward to seek again the establishment of a strong democratic base on which we can conduct international relations moving forward. So I will be committing that before Inadia even considers joining any interregional organizations moving forward, the people of Inadia will be required to consent to such an act via a referendum enacted by this House. The government is not willing to impose upon Canadians, without their say, the stripping of their constitutional safeguards and freedoms, of which we are all sworn in this House to protect and preserve. I also note, and I thank again the my honourable friend, His Worship Rayom de Valois, for his participation in the RP. I've enjoyed watching his engagement with the Secretary of State for roleplay. It's been quite an interesting experience. I also note and thank the Chief Whip Angry Beelan for his unique style, which has brought much joy to many members. I thank Mr. Speaker himself and the Attorney General for their involvement as well. Moving forward, it is the intention of the Canadian government to offer access to our program as part of the Open Inadia policy to our partners and associate regions. We are engaged in the idea within the Roleplay Department and the Office of the Prime Minister that it is in the interest of Inadia to expand our RP base and to include our partners in so. Therefore, it will be under consideration along with the movements in the arcade program, which I note and I thank the technical department, notably Mr. Speaker and His Majesty the King, for their inclusion of a new game launched on there this week, which I am pleased to see members engaging with. What I will say, though, is it is clear that moving forward, Inadia will be in the strongest of possible positions by being an open, welcoming, and inclusive region, putting our citizens' rights at the heart of everything we do, and ensuring that the Canadian interest is upheld moving forward. And I would like to welcome the Secretary of State for Justice, newly appointed, back from his leave of absence, and say I am looking forward to him engaging constructively with the Attorney General, Solicitor General, and the government as a whole. So welcome back, and I am glad things went well for you in your endeavour. I would note, and I welcome back my friend, the Secretary of State for Foreign Affairs, who I've been engaged with in diplomacy moving forward, and we are pleased to announce that we have managed to establish a fair, reasonable, and welcoming and inclusive relationship with Southfield, putting behind the divisions of the AOR. The Southfield government engaged positively, and I note that there was some implication posted by a citizen that there was somehow a dislike for Southfield within Inadia. That's not the case. This government's policy is to engage constructively with all regions who share our democratic core values at their heart. In the case of Southfield, I welcome their ambassador, who is here at invitation of the government and therefore the people of Inadia. So please show them due respect as you would a citizen or anyone else. Just because our regions have had difficulties in the past does not mean that we should treat people differently than how we would like to be treated ourselves. So I would note to citizens, before you engage in foreign policy of your own volition to inform ambassadors that their regions are disliked or in any way unwelcome in Inadia, please desist from doing so. When an ambassador is present in Inadia, they are here at our invitation, and we have an ambassador present in their region also, who is there at their invitation. Foreign affairs is a mutual relationship and requires mutual respect. So I would ask all Canadians, when speaking to foreign dignitaries, to show due respect to their customs, to their regions, and follow our own established laws and principles under the Canadian Criminal Code, which simply states very clearly in Article 1K that to undermine regional foreign policies is a crime. However, at the moment, we have never had to prosecute anyone for doing so, and I hope that remains the case. So in future, be respectful, engage positively, and ensure that an open Inadia is a roaring success, as I'm sure you all will. So I thank the members for their attendance, and I commend this statement perhaps.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. I would like to explain myself to the Honourable Member Cheshire as to why I will not be allowing them first to respond to the point of order. I would like to read the point of order as a start because for the sake of record, but at the same time for the honourable people that they cannot see this channel, especially the foreign ones, I would like to point out that Mr. Halvatorius has made a point of order asking the honourable member Northeast Cheshire to withdraw their comment directed towards the chair, the speaker's chair. He wishes to, or in this case here, to make known that we should be tolerant towards those who might not have such a harsh view on the Assembly of Regions, despite our disagreement with them. With that being said, the Honourable Member Cheshire would like also to respond to that point of order, and the floor will be yours.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If you wish for me to withdraw my comment, I shall do so. However, I would just like to make note to Mr. Helvatorius that the Speaker was very welcome, along with myself and many members of the government, on the Leave campaign of the Assembly of Regions, and I am sure that the Speaker understood my reference that he was perhaps still fond of the AOR was clearly in jest, as he was a key and instrumental figure in our campaign to take back control.
The Honourable Member Helvatorius has a response to that. With that being said, please go ahead, type in your response. In the future, I'm not sure whether there is any way that we can actually find a way that we can, well, you know, facilitate or better facilitate responses via chat and at the same time via microphone. Any other points of order or questions that you wish to make known today?
None from the government.
All right, thank you so much, Prime Minister. All right, so the statements from the government have concluded. The response from Mr. Helvatorius is that may be the case, but I was only referring to the way the speakers believe this is to be the case, but for the sake of those individual citizens who might not. Would you like to be... Yes, try. Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would just say to my honourable friend, as I do indeed take his response on board, I'm pretty sure I think he will agree with me that the requirement for making a statement in jest, fully intended as a joke, is not that every single person understands the joke, otherwise that would somewhat take away from the joke. However, if he or any other member somehow took offence to the small piece of banter between myself and the speaker, then I apologise. However, I would indeed hope that that is not the case.
Point of order.
Yes, Mr. Prime Minister.
I would note that perhaps it would be better for the honourable members to write to each other outside of the chamber and come to a conclusion next week, as we have been in session for 40 minutes now.
Yeah, the point of order is accepted in this case here. And Mr. Cato, yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In light of the Prime Minister's comments, I would like to beg to move that the question do now be put that this House does now adjourn.
The question is up for a second.
Second.
Alright, with that being said, today's session has concluded in 37 minutes of recording. Thank you so much for participating and see you next time.